Hi friends! Today I have prepared a very useful topic for you. The secret of internal fat. How it steals health and life. Stay with us. It will be interesting and useful. You believe everything is fine with you. You glance at yourself in the mirror and see a familiar reflection. Perhaps you've gained a little weight, or maybe, on the contrary, you have a slender physique. The scale shows a normal number. Your clothes fit as they always have, and you reassure yourself, I'm healthy. But deep inside you, something may be lurking, a presence that is slowly killing you, and you don't even suspect its existence. Imagine an enemy that is impossible to detect. It has no smell, no color, and you cannot touch it. It doesn't cause pain or send any alarm signals. But it is constricting your organs, much like a snake squeezes its prey. It encases your heart, liver, and intestines in a sticky layer, and day by day it suffocates them, leaving no chance for escape. You continue to live your ordinary life, going to work, meeting up with friends, laughing. And all the while, this enemy inside you is gathering its strength, preparing to one day deliver a fatal blow. And here's the terrifying part. This strike can happen suddenly. A heart attack, a stroke, cancer. Everything seems to be going well, and then abruptly you find yourself on a hospital bed. And many people, even at that moment, fail to understand that the true culprit isn't genetics or random chance, but an enemy you have been carrying within you for years. This enemy is called visceral fat. It's not the kind that hangs in folds on your stomach and sides, not the kind you can pinch with your fingers. This fat hides deep inside. It's like an invisible web that entwines your internal organs, puts pressure on your blood vessels, and infiltrates the most vulnerable places. It weakens the heart, sickens the liver, and makes the intestines sluggish. It triggers an inflammatory process that never ceases, not even for a minute. A recent study from the American Journal of Cardiology revealed that nearly 1 in 3 adults with a healthy BMI actually has dangerous levels of this internal fat, placing them at a significantly higher risk for metabolic disease. And now pay close attention. You can be thin, and yet this enemy can still be living inside of you. Yes, that's right. Even people with a slim waist and an elegant figure often fall victim to hidden internal fat. It sounds like a paradox, but medical science has long since proven thinness does not always equate to health. The story of Emily from Austin confirms this. She was a young woman, 30 years old, working as a graphic designer. Her weight was only 115 pounds, and she stood at 5 feet 5 inches. To all appearances, she was petite, delicate, with a perfect figure. Her colleagues were envious of her slenderness, and she herself was confident. I have nothing to worry about. But when she started experiencing persistent migraines and a brain fog that hindered her creativity, she sought medical advice. The tests revealed a shocking truth. She had an excess of visceral fat. You wouldn't believe it, but her organs were literally caught in a fatty vice. We changed her diet, incorporated simple daily walks around Lady Bird Lake, and in just 3 months, her level of internal fat decreased significantly. And do you know what she said? For the first time in a long time, I wake up in the morning and don't feel tired. But that's only the beginning. Even more frightening is the story of Michael from Chicago. At 42 years old, he was a construction foreman, a true titan, tall and broad-shouldered. Everyone around him considered him the picture of health. But he himself noticed things. It was hard to breathe when climbing stairs at the job site, and his heart pounded even after a short walk carrying a toolbox. He decided to get a checkup, and the doctors were stunned. His heart and liver were virtually encased in a fatty armor. A chronic inflammation was raging inside him. His body was fighting an invisible enemy every single day. And here is where it gets most interesting. Michael agreed to a program, a corrected diet, a clear regimen, and daily walks. And after just 4 months, he had lost 26 pounds. His blood pressure returned to normal, and his breathing became easy. Today, he says, I feel 20 years younger. But you know what's scary? If he hadn't decided to take that step, it all could have ended in tragedy. And here's a fact that will shock you. Even athletes who spend hours training in the gym can be victims of this hidden fat. Their muscles are defined, their arms are strong, their chests are broad. But if their stomach protrudes even slightly, it is a worrying sign. It means that an enemy may be lurking inside. Muscles can mask the problem, but the inflammation is already underway. Scientists call visceral fat the silent killer. And that is not a metaphor. A shocking 2025 report from Harvard Medical School linked excess visceral fat to a staggering 44% increase in the risk for cardiovascular events. That figure might not seem huge at first glance, but just imagine, that's almost half. This means if you take two people with identical lifestyles, but one has excess internal fat, he is far more likely not to live to an old age. And this is only the first part of the story. It gets even scarier from here, because you are about to find out how this enemy operates inside your body and why it destroys the health of even those who consider themselves completely normal. So, now you know who your hidden enemy is. But how exactly does it work? Why is it so dangerous? This is where the most terrifying part begins. Visceral fat isn't just a reserve of energy. It actively interferes with the functioning of your body. It oxidizes easily, and your immune system reacts to this as if it were a threat. Your body's first responders, the guardian cells that are supposed to fight infections, rush to these areas. But instead of saving you, they fuel the fire of inflammation. They release a chemical firestorm of inflammatory signals, molecules that literally burn your blood vessels and tissues from the inside out. You don't see it, but this process is happening every single minute. And here's what is incredible. This inflammation blocks your cell's sensitivity to insulin. The hormone that should regulate your blood sugar level stops working as it should. And when insulin can no longer cope, your body screams, "I need more energy," and you start to feel hungry. You eat more, and the fat continues to accumulate. It's a vicious cycle. Fat causes inflammation. Inflammation causes hunger, and hunger leads to more fat. And the longer this cycle exists, the more your body suffers. You won't believe it, but even young people can face this. Let's consider David from Denver, 48 years old. He always thought of himself as athletic. Several times a week he worked out with kettlebells and went for trail runs. But when we measured his waistline and ran some tests, it turned out that dangerous fat was accumulating inside him. His heart was already under pressure, and his blood vessels were slightly inflamed. We created a plan. His strength training remained, but we added nutritional control and daily walks. After 2 months, he managed to reduce his waistline by 2.5 inches, and his blood work returned to normal. You might ask, but what about thin people? Here's the surprise. Even if your weight is normal, you can have an excess of visceral fat. Slender people think that nothing threatens them, but their organs can be held captive by internal fat. A landmark 2025 study published in The Lancet confirmed that this hidden internal fat is a primary driver of type 2 diabetes and hypertension, even in individuals who appear perfectly slim. Now for a little bit of science, but not the boring kind. Internal fat is a living organ. Yes, an organ. It produces hormones, influences your metabolism, and even affects your mood. When there is too much of it, it turns into an inflammation factory. With every extra inch on your waist, the risk of disease increases. And do you know what's even more terrifying? Studies show that the chronic inflammation caused by this fat accelerates cellular aging. Your internal organs can age faster than you do, and you won't even notice. But now for some good news. Visceral fat can be controlled. And this is where the main principle comes into play. Balance. Not a diet to the point of exhaustion, not marathon training sessions every day. Regular movement, proper nutrition, and adherence to your body's natural rhythms are enough. Let's take the example of Linda from Miami. She is 65 years old. She decided to change her lifestyle. Regular meals 3 times a day, hour-long walks, and giving up sweets and pastries. After 1 month, her internal fat level decreased by 8%. She herself said, "I feel a lightness again, like I did when I was 40. And here's the hook for you. All of this can be done without becoming a super athlete and without resorting to extreme diets. Small steps every day, and the enemy loses its power. But it is important to understand the mechanism. Visceral fat triggers inflammation. Inflammation destroys cells, and the destruction of cells leads to disease. If you don't intervene, this process can go on for years, and you won't even notice until a sudden blow occurs. And what comes next will be the most interesting part. We will break down how to eat correctly, which foods accelerate fat burning, and which ones slow it down, and how to incorporate exercises so that the enemy retreats. You will learn what simple, everyday actions can genuinely reduce your level of visceral fat and lower your risk of cardiovascular disease. But before we move on to practical steps, let's remember one more story. Mark from Philadelphia, 35 years old, was actively involved in sports, but after turning 30, he noticed that his stomach started to protrude slightly. He didn't pay it any mind, thinking, "My muscles are just getting softer." But tests showed that it wasn't just muscle softness. It was hidden visceral fat that was gradually putting pressure on his liver and pancreas. We created a plan for him: nutritional control, interval training, and walks in the fresh air. After 3 months, Mark noticed an improvement. The constant fatigue disappeared, his general well-being improved, and his waistline shrank by a few inches. Do you see the pattern? The stories are different, the ages are different, the genders are different, but the mechanism is the same. Internal fat acts quietly but destructively, and if you don't intervene in time, the consequences can be deadly. And now for the most interesting part. How do you defeat an enemy that is hidden deep inside? How do you burn visceral fat and reclaim your health and energy? And believe me, it is possible without grueling diets and 3-hour workouts every day. First, nutrition. The main principle is to create a calorie deficit. The body begins to use its internal fat stores, which means the enemy loses its strength. But there is a nuance here. It is important not to starve yourself, but to eat in a specific rhythm. Breakfast at 8 a.m., lunch at 1 p.m., dinner at 6 p.m. This simple schedule helps to synchronize your biological clock, improves your hormonal balance, and reduces hunger. Let's take the story of Linda from Miami again. She is 65 years old. She followed this simple regimen, added walks in the fresh air, and gave up sweets and pastries. After 1 month, her visceral fat had decreased by 8%. She herself said, "I feel a lightness again, like I did in my youth." And this is the result of simple steps without extreme exertion. Second, we eliminate simple carbohydrates. Pastries, cakes, sugar. These are fuel for internal fat. By cutting them out, you begin to destroy the environment in which the enemy thrives. There's an interesting scientific fact. A 2025 report from Healthline showed that 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar a day can reduce visceral fat levels by 4%. It's a tiny step at first glance, but its effect is cumulative. Third, fiber. A minimum of 30 grams per day. This includes broccoli, cabbage, nuts, whole grain cereals, and mushrooms. Half of your plate should be greens and vegetables. Water and low-fiber vegetables like cucumbers and tomatoes are good for hydration, but they have almost no effect on fat. Fourth, healthy fats. Many people are afraid of them, thinking that fat turns into fat. But in reality, the right fats are your ally. In the morning, eggs, real butter, full-fat Greek yogurt. In the afternoon, olive oil, avocado. They provide satiety and support your skin and hair. Women who completely eliminate fats from their diet look tired after a couple of months. Their skin loses its glow and their hair becomes brittle. Fifth, proteins. Protein is the foundation of life. 1/4 of your plate should be protein: meat, fish, legumes. Mix animal and plant-based proteins. If your body has trouble digesting protein, it's a sign of digestive issues that can be corrected. Sixth, a food diary. Write down everything you eat. After a week, you will be amazed at how many unnoticed calories slip into your diet. Many people think, I eat very little, but a diary shows the opposite. Seventh, movement. Walking for 45 minutes, 5 to 6 times a week, already kickstarts the fat-burning process. Running, interval training, and strength exercises amplify the effect. A kettlebell at home is a simple and effective tool. Take the story of David from Denver. 48 years old, 2 months of training with a kettlebell, his waistline decreased by 2.5 inches and his overall well-being improved. And here's a little secret, brown fat. There's not much of it, only about 0.1% of your body mass, but it is capable of burning calories many times faster. Cold procedures, like a contrast shower, all activate brown fat. Life becomes a bit of a game. You turn on the cold and you accelerate fat burning. A groundbreaking 2025 study in Nature demonstrated that daily exposure to cold can boost brown fat activity by 6% in just 1 month. This means your internal fat will melt away faster. And now, attention, here is a 30-day plan. Small steps to defeat the enemy. Timed meals. Breakfast at 8 a.m., lunch at 1 p.m., dinner at 6 p.m. No simple carbohydrates, sugar, pastries, sweets. 1 square of dark chocolate in the morning is allowed. Fiber, 30 grams of vegetables and greens per day, whole grain products, nuts. Healthy fats, eggs, real butter, olive oil, avocado. 1/4 of your plate should be meat, fish, or legumes. Food diary, write everything down to see where you're making mistakes. Movement, walk for 45 minutes, do interval training 3 times a week, and strength training twice a week. Cold stimuli, a contrast shower in the morning with 1 to 2 minutes of cold water. And here's another hook. The results come faster than you think. Michael from Chicago, 42 years old, lost 26 pounds in 4 months. Emily from Austin saw a 10% reduction in visceral fat in 3 months. Linda, 65 years old, had an 8% reduction in 1 month. And this was all without surgery, without medication, just through healthy habits. Remember, the enemy is invisible, but it can be defeated. It is silent, it doesn't hurt, it isn't visible in the mirror, but every day you can take steps to weaken its power. Small habits, proper nutrition, movement, and cold, and your body will begin to liberate itself. And up next will be the final part, psychological motivation, tips for maintaining your results, and a long-term plan to ensure the enemy never returns. So, you know the enemy, you've learned how to fight it, and you even have a 30-day action plan. But the most important thing is motivation. Because without it, even the most effective advice will remain just words on a screen. Let's recall the stories of these people. Michael from Chicago felt the difference within a few weeks. Emily from Austin got rid of her chronic fatigue. And Linda from Miami regained her lightness and energy. Each of them took steps that seem simple today, but it was precisely these steps that saved their health. And importantly, these steps were consistent, without drastic restrictions or exhausting workouts. And now for the most crucial part, maintaining the result. You can defeat the enemy in a month, but if you return to your old habits, the fat will start to accumulate again. That's why it's vital to make these new habits permanent. Here are a few principles that work. First, daily activity. Even if you miss a workout, take a 30-40-minute walk. Take the stairs instead of the elevator, and take short breaks for stretching. Every movement counts. Second, nutritional control. You don't need to count calories every minute. It's enough to remember the rules. Fewer simple carbohydrates, more fiber, and the right proteins and fats. Gradually, these principles will become a habit and work automatically. Third, a psychological mindset. It's important to treat these changes as a game. Celebrate your victories. Your waistline is smaller, it's easier to breathe, the fatigue is gone. This motivates you to continue. And remember, every small victory adds up. Fourth, using triggers. A contrast shower, walks, a food diary, all of these are small signals for your body. They remind you, we are on the side of health. Incorporate them into your routine, and they will become second nature. Fifth, support. Tell your friends about your goals. Join a community where people share their successes. This adds accountability and inspiration. The stories of others show that defeating the enemy is possible, and you are not alone on this path. And now, a hook for you. You won't believe it, but research from the American Heart Association shows that reducing visceral fat by just 5% decreases the risk of heart disease by an incredible 25%. Imagine how your life would change if you reduced it by 10% or 15%. This isn't science fiction. It's the real result of small but consistent actions. Next, long-term strategies. Even after you have defeated the enemy, it is important to maintain the result. Daily habits, nutritional control, activity, and cold stimuli, all of this must remain a part of your life. Remember, visceral fat can return if you ignore it. Therefore, support, planning, and discipline are your best friends. And one more secret that is often overlooked. Internal fat affects your mood, energy, and mental clarity. By conquering it, you not only improve your health, but also enhance your quality of life. You sleep better, you get tired less often, and your brain works more efficiently. This isn't just about your body, it's about your entire existence. So let's summarize. The enemy is invisible, but it can be defeated. Small steps: eating on a schedule, giving up empty calories, consuming fiber, proteins, healthy fats, moving, and using cold. All of this really works. The stories of people confirm it. Results are possible at any age, with any level of fitness. In closing, I want to leave you with a thought that motivates. You are the master of your own body. Visceral fat can be terrifying, but you are not powerless against it. Every action you take is a blow to the enemy. Every day that you go for a walk, choose vegetables over sweets, take a contrast shower, you are making yourself stronger, healthier, and younger. And from here on out, it's your life. Imagine waking up a month from now feeling refreshed, with energy overflowing, your waistline smaller, your breathing free, and your heart calm. All of this is possible if you take action. Don't put off until tomorrow what you can do today. The enemy is hidden, but it is vulnerable. Fight it, and victory will be yours. Subscribe to the channel and hit that like button so you don't miss the new tips, stories, and tricks that will help you stay healthy for the long haul.